Rome's famous law code, the 12 Tables, comes down to us in bits and pieces, often preserved either as fragments or as one-liners in other sources, but from what we have surviving, many of the laws appear to be highly situational, often concerned with actions between neighbors. One of those laws forbids utilizing magic to steal another's crops straight from their fields, and another law forbids utilizing magic to curse an enemy, primarily in the form of utterances, but it's perhaps possible that also applied to curse tablets. But Romans were also known to travel to see the oracle at Delphi, and there were strong hints that the Romans also traveled to the blasted landscape of the Phlegraean Fields and Lake Avernus, believed by some to be the entrance to hell, to visit the Oracle of Death. Now, if that interests you, I would recommend you check out the video I've done on the Oracle of the Dead. The link is in this video's description. People also hawked magical charms and potions on the streets in order to possibly influence events. Because that's what, in the most simplified, basic academic definition of the term, magic is. It's the attempt to influence objectives and aims based in reality, trying to get a good score on a test, for example, as well as attempts to invoke supernatural forces like demons and deities. There isn't really a clear distinction between the two, and in part, it's because the term magic comes from the Persian magi, referring to priests, which then enters Greek, and then enters Latin as the word magus, so it was always related to religion in some form. Now to the Romans, much of this was, in a word, freaky, and it was something which had to be regulated through the law. Hence things like the 12 Tables. But that wasn't the only set of laws the Romans devised to try and regulate different forms of magic. In 81 BC, after Sulla won a civil war and becomes dictator of the Republic, he issued a set of laws designed to do just that. Julius Paulus Brutentissimus, otherwise known as Paul, not the Apostle, was a Roman jurist living in the early 3rd century AD who authored over 300 legal works which helped form the basis, at least in part, for Justinian's Code in the 6th century. One of those texts, if we can indeed attribute it to Paul, and it's extremely likely that we can, is a commentary on Sulla's laws, many of which deal with the regulation of magic. For example, one of the laws reads, "Those who perform or arrange for the performance of impious or nocturnal rites in order to enchant, transfix, or bind someone shall either be crucified or thrown to the beasts." Laws like this, and we have many surviving, banned or sought to severely punish what was considered magical con artistry, so things like love potions are also lumped into this, at least in theory, but also more nasty things, such as human sacrifice. Now, things like crucifixion sound horrific, and it is. There are different methods of crucifixion, all of which impact the rate at which you die, but gruesome punishments like this appear to be standard practice for people convicted of duping the public via magic. Another one of those laws stipulates that if you're convicted of sacrificing someone to obtain omens from the body, you are to be burned alive. If you were caught with spell books, the books are burned and you were either sent to a remote island to basically starve to death, or you had your head chopped off. Now this is where we get to the most famous of all Roman magical practitioners. Roman men should be in full control of themselves, and women were often viewed in Rome as temptresses and corrupters. A tad bit ironic, considering that some of the most powerful and influential Romans of all time were women, such as Galla Placidia, and old age made these women even more fearsome because age addled their minds and made them more susceptible to, well, the dark arts, magic. What arises from this is the stereotype of the old witch, a literary stock character, but also one which features heavily in Roman mythology, the Sibyl of Cumae being perhaps the best example. But at the same time, there were other forms of magic which did not necessarily fall under the purview of the law, and thus there wasn't really any sort of punishment. I'm talking here about things like magical amulets, charms, and divination. The primary sources we have make it exceedingly clear that the people who were often killed for practicing magic were either outliers who made too big a name for themselves, or were working at a level which involved elites, which attracted attention. It's extremely likely that most Roman magical practices took the form of things like amulets and charms and functioned at such a low social level that authorities would not notice. So, there you have it. An extremely brief, concise introduction to magic and the practice of magic in the Roman world. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.